Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is our NFL preview show, and it is AFC NFC Championship weekend. Gentlemen, start your engines because this is something that's going to be really important. This is the last big game before the big game. And anybody that's gotten a chance to play in it, I for sure haven't. Joey, I don't think you got a chance to play in a Super Bowl. It is something it is a marvel of American society. Yes, the World Cup is its own thing, but if 9 of the top 10 shows in American television history are Super Bowls. And we're not quite there yet, but usually some of the best football is played on championship weekend. Players from all 4 of the teams know the stakes. They know what it's going to take. Everything that you have is given. The tackling will be better. The sprinting away will be better. Some of the catches will be unbelievable. Some of the getaways will be incredible and be fantastic moments. But if your team doesn't win, you're going to tie yourself up in knots and just wonder where it all went. So this is a big one. So joining me, Joey Clinkscales, former general manager, personnel director, scout, player at the NFL level. Joey, thank you for being with us. And Brian LeBel, also our NFL analyst and NCAA analyst. Thank you both for taking some time to talk about the second biggest weekend in NFL in the scheduling. And Joey, we'll start with you. Big week. We'll get to the games in just a little bit, but leading up to this, there's only 4 teams left. 2 of them are going to win and get a chance to play for the Super Bowl. What is that like from a front office perspective, where you've worked so hard from the scouting, bringing in the right people, making sure you got everything the coaches need, the players need, what the owner wants, the fans, everything that's associated with it? It's a big deal. And for you to get here, you get a chance to play in the Super Bowl and get a ring. What's that like for you?
Well, everybody goes into it in the beginning of the season, starting a training camp, under the impression that, we want to be the last one standing. So now we're down to 4 teams who's going to give their all these next week. And you know what? The chips fall where they may. You have a couple really, really, really good games coming up. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, especially the second game. The teams have seen each other before in the second game that we'll talk about, and it'll be the 3rd time this season that they're meeting. So that game would be probably even a little more interesting and drama-filled than the first game.
Well, you've got fans in Jacksonville, in Pittsburgh, Los Angeles with the Chargers, Houston, Buffalo, of course. You got San Francisco, Chicago fans, Green Bay, Philadelphia, even Carolina. All of them are a little upset that they're not getting a chance to play. They had a chance. They were in the playoffs, but for whatever reason, they just didn't have what it took on game day. And so now we're down to the Broncos, the Patriots. They'll play in the first game. This will be a 3:00 kick on Sunday. And then you've got the Seahawks hosting the Rams. That should be a 6:30, maybe 6:32 will be the official kick time for that one, all on February 8th. Brian, first and foremost, your perspective. To the riches, the spoils go the riches, and tough losses for some of the other organizations. But, getting a chance to play in a game like this is what every organization wants to do. But the fans and the networks also are going to profit from this, because there should be 2 great games and a lot of reasons to watch. But also the fans, it doesn't matter if you're in New York, if you're in Kansas City, you're going to stop what you're doing and pay attention to either one of these games in a little manner, not quite the same way if your team was in it, but certainly you respect the efforts of all the other teams that are making it.
Yeah, if you're Kansas City, or if you're one of the teams that's accustomed to playing still at this point, you probably aren't grilling out. You're probably not doing your whole tailgating routine, but you're still going to be watching, right? It's still interesting. It's still it's still one of the best parts of the sport, right? Championship weekend, which I don't know if we can call it that, because college kind of has dubbed that for their conference championships, but a lot of really good teams left standing. I think we knew they would be, right? I think if you look at the 4 that are left, I think New England and I think Seattle, I don't want to say they had easier times, but, coming off the bye, especially for Seattle, and then beating up on a team that was already beaten up in San Francisco, that game was, Seattle's to dominate from the outset. I mean, they crushed them. And then the same with New England. New England really from the get-go was up, and CJ Stroud obviously didn't play his best game ever. Maybe his worst game ever is what he played. But the other 2 teams, Denver, obviously, the elephant in the room for them is no Bo Nix, right? So how are they going to respond? But it was a close game. That was a dogfight. They had to really scrap and claw. And even when Bo Nix playing, it was a struggle to beat Josh Allen and the Bills. And on the other side, the same thing with the Rams, another very close game. So to 4 teams, 2 of them got here kind of easily, and then the other 2 had to scrape and scratch and claw and, by the skin of their teeth. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these teams come into this week and, whether or not I don't know, would you say LA has an advantage maybe because they had to play a tougher game and it was tighter, and maybe it's just they're in playoff mode more so than Seattle, who was, that game against San Francisco, that game was over, 5 minutes into the third quarter.
Or even sooner than that. It was 17-0 at the end of the first quarter. Joey, from a business perspective, obviously I mentioned that the networks, this is when they start making their money. They get to charge a little bit extra. Obviously, the Super Bowl 30-second minute shots are where they basically pay for all the advertising and the money that they had to get the rights. But also, the business of the game itself, it's in good hands. And, we're within a week or 2 of having the state of the game addressed by Roger Goodell. What's your assessment, especially also because the national championship game, as Brian mentioned just a moment again, we can call it that, I guess, the NCAA, the playoff was last night. So there's a whole market of people that don't have anything from a college perspective to watch. So the audience should also be the network should know that the audience should be a larger slice of the pie, because people that would only watch college have nothing to watch anymore, and so they may stick their eyes and ears in on Sundays.
Well, there are a lot of layers to what you just said, and I'll try to peel a few of them back, so it may take a minute. So from the pro perspective, in the National Football League, there's revenue sharing, so everything is split 32 ways, and even the playoff revenue is split 32 ways, with the exception of the teams playing individually, that they will receive more money individually. But that being said, the owners of that, which is why you want the home field advantage, because the owners during this time of the home teams, that's not shared. Okay, so that money from a playoff perspective, if you have home games, that's extra money in your pocket. So from an ownership perspective, so that's why everybody's fighting for home field advantage, because that money from an ownership perspective is not split 32 ways. That goes to that goes to the owner of the home team. So so
Denver and Seattle have a financial advantage to host these games.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, without question. So you have you have that aspect, and then I'm not real sure how the colleges do it, and now they're looking down the revenue sharing, but that's from a player perspective and not necessarily from a school perspective. Now, if we're going, I'm switching back and forth. For the NFL, there'll be a point in time during the season, after the season, March, April, sometime where those checks get cut from the network. And if I'm being quite honest, the fans are great. That money helps go into the pot that the owners get each team, which is why you'll never hear one owner tell another owner not to build a stadium. Okay, because the more butts in the seat, the more money that every owner can get. If Atlanta builds a new stadium, 31 other teams profit. Those teams that travel in, and the money's revenue and shared, so everybody profits. Okay, now the owner profits even more from the PSLs. That's where that's where the owners get their money from that particular deal, is from the PSL. So Arthur Blank would get the bulk of that money from the PSL. That's why you have things set up the way they are. But that being said, again, in March or April, each owner will get a check for probably $500, $600, $700 million individually. That's because of the TV contracts was done, and again, everything's split 32 ways. And the more butts in the seat, the more TV games that are done with Netflix and Prime and whomever else is doing that. that's more money that goes to the owner. So again, there are a lot of layers that go to the business of football, and that's what it is, the business of football. But every owner wants home games, and the more you're at home, the more money that goes into ownership pocket. And as far as the NCAA, yeah, right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the NCAA, for example, I don't know what the revenue share is, but let's just say, for example, if every $1 for Indiana and Miami that goes into their pocket, 50 cents of that, if I'm not mistaken, or at least I believe that's the percentage, goes to the conference that they're in. So the Big Ten and then the ACC all get a slot. So the Big Ten, for example, would have 17 other teams, including Indiana, that would split that at 50 cents, and then the other 50 cents goes to Indiana. In the NFL, excuse me, Joey, if I'm wrong, you said 32. There's 32 teams, but the money is split 33 different ways because the league gets a full share of that as well. So each team plus the league gets 1/33 of every dollar that comes in. You mentioned something that really brought my attention several years ago. When the Broncos were playing in Mile High Stadium, there were not any luxury seats in that stadium. When they built Invesco, which is the stadium that they're in now, yes, they did have it. So the league, because there was one team that didn't have luxury boxes, they did not have to split that money evenly. So let's say Dallas charged $5 for a luxury seat, and the Los Angeles team, whether it be the Rams or the Chargers, they get $10. Those owners get to keep that, right, Joey? Am I correct with that? But that's now correct. That all 32 teams have luxury boxes, that money is split evenly. It's thrown into one big pot and then shared evenly. So even if, let's say, Arizona really only has a small 1 or 2%, they get to receive a full share percentage. So that's one of the neat things about the way that parking, ticket revenues, butts in the seats, concessions, the food, beverages, all of that stuff is divided evenly. Joey, please forgive me, I interrupted you.
No, that's correct. And that's why if let's just say it's Arizona, they aren't doing well. They aren't selling seats. They, whatever the reason, maybe it's because of the stadium, maybe it's because the play on the field, whatever the reason, other owners will come to that owner's defense and try to help them along the way to get certain things done to help provide for that team because ultimately it's helping their bottom line as well. So, you don't want to go to Arizona and get 25 cents on the dollar because of what's going on and go to another place and Arizona is getting 50 cents on the dollar when they come to your place. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why every owner is in the business of helping every owner be profitable in their region.
Yeah, and I remember in 1989, I'm a first-year player in the National Football League. $30 was the price of a ticket to go to a LA Raiders game or an Arizona Cardinals game. It was the highest in the league. In Seattle, it was $22 for a ticket. So it was a real bargain there. I remember having to get some tickets for some friends and family. Brian, you weren't born yet, so you didn't have to worry about that. But I'm just telling you right now, money was definitely different. And when the cap kicks in, one of the reasons that Jerry Jones was so upset is because he's selling more T-shirts, caps, and cowboy gear, banners that you have and bumper stickers than Arizona was. And certainly back in the day, you could throw Jacksonville in or Carolina. They weren't anywhere close to the same amount as what they were. So he was really upset about the revenue sharing. That specific portion was, he was carrying the load and really shouldering that burden in a way a lot of owners weren't. Brian, before we go back into, we want to look at the coaches, just any other comments that you have regarding the business of championship weekend just prior to where the Super Bowl is?
No, I don't think I had anything I could add on to that. Honestly, I think we touched all the bases there. I think we got it. I think we're good.
All right. Well, it's going to be a great weekend, folks. And for obvious reasons, this is prior to the NFL showing that ticker tape parade of having everything that is associated with the Super Bowl, even our inability to use that word, Super Bowl weekend. We won't be able to do that, but, we could get silenced. There are some great things that are going on, and obviously 2 big games. We're going to talk about those in just a minute. Before we do, let's talk about the coaching carousel. Let's take a look at some of the jobs that have been filled, and yet there's still, because Buffalo fired their head coach just the other day, He had his Black Monday when they get back from their trip to Denver. Actually, it was on Sunday. They have their meeting, and then Monday morning we knew. Joey, first and foremost, your comments here on some of the moves that have been made and some of the openings that still exist.
Well, a lot of people were surprised by the Buffalo move, and I intimated that there was a move that could possibly happen after our last show, and that was the one that I thought that probably would happen if they didn't go deep into the playoffs, given all the things that had led up to that point with the scheduling and with the players out and with the teams out and with the schedule that Buffalo had this year. I think they were on a path where this really should have been their year to get there. Now, and for whatever reason that didn't happen, whether it been albeit injury or personnel, the lack of help that Josh Allen had, whatever the reason, it cost the head coach's job and actually the general manager not only kept his job but was actually promoted to president of football operations along with being the general manager. So that's interesting, given the way that the personnel on the team look. So for whatever reason that happened. That being said, there still are 6 openings, and actually the Cleveland opening is interesting to me because 2 coaches have already taken their name out of the hat that interviewed there. McDaniels and Brian Flores have both said we appreciate the interview, but we decide
thanks, but no thanks. Yeah,
right. Thanks, but no thanks. We don't want to be in the running for the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, which tells me that there are other things going on there, whether it be control, whether it be people calling the shots, whether it be changing in the GM. There's something going there that coaches don't seem to like. Experienced coaches don't seem to like. A new coach would not have a choice in that if he wants a job. An experienced coach, if he can't have the table set in a manner that he feels like he can go in and win his way, then they don't want the job. So that's going to be an interesting job. The Raiders job would be interesting as well, because I wouldn't be surprised if a couple guys didn't take the name out of that hat already as well.
Now, in a perfect world, Joey, someone would go, how could anyone not want to be the head coach of a National Football League team, whether it be Cleveland or Las Vegas? That's the ultimate thrill of a lifetime. What you're saying is there's some things going on behind the curtain where the wizard is moving things around, and the little dog Toto kind of removes that curtain and realizes that there's some things that don't make a whole lot of sense here. And especially a coach that's seasoned and been around for a little while, I may not be as comfortable in this position no matter what the money is, no matter who my assistant coaches is, no matter how much power I have. And Bill Parcells is the first I've heard to say it, so I'll quote Bill and saying, hey, if you want me to cook the dinner, you better give me the opportunity to go out and get the ingredients that you want, right. Go shopping. And whether that power is enough or not enough, it's a very fragile decision, isn't it, for many coaches, that I may be getting myself into a pot of hot water where I really I wouldn't feel as comfortable as I would in another organization where I know I'd feel a little bit more at home, and the winning situation might be a lot better.
Right. I think if it's a veteran coach, that coach will probably say, you know what, I would rather go and be an assistant for a year, have my name put back in the hat, especially if I'm a really good coordinator, get my name put back in the hat next year for another opening. So, that you're kind of rolling the dice there that may happen. But, you can go in and talk to people and just not feel comfortable when you walk out the door that winning is their main priority. And everybody wants to win, but some people would rather win their way than lose your way. So those things happen, believe it or not. So it'll be interesting how, who lands in Cleveland. My guess is it'll be a first-time coach that lands in Cleveland. I'm not sure that's the route that they should take, but that's my guess. It'll be a first-time coach that lands in Cleveland, not a veteran coach.
Okay. A lot of interesting changes. We have 4 that are finalized. Hafley in Miami, Brian Robert Saleh going to Tennessee. John Harbaugh is the new coach of the New York Giants. Kevin Stefanski here in Atlanta. Are there any surprises there for you?
Well, I think Salah might have been one of the guys to kind of look at this cycle and say maybe I'll take a breather, or maybe he'll go pit. I think he would have been a phenomenal culture fit in Pittsburgh, right? His attitude, how he operates, his defensive mindset. I think it would have fit what they were trying to do there. But I like the decision to go to Tennessee, just because I think his main decision is get an offensive coordinator, let him take care of the quarterback development and figure that out, whatever, and kind of retool this team. Because it is a, build from the ground up. And actually, breaking the Chargers are hiring Mike McDaniel. So his opportunity to be head coach is done. He's going to be the Chargers offensive coordinator now. So that's interesting.
Oh,
but,
wow. Okay.
it's a fresh start for him. I think he deserved another chance, because I think we kind of talked about it and we've joked about it a lot. We're hard on the Jets, but I think if you coach the Jets, I think you should get a mulligan, right? I think you get another chance to come out and, maybe say, okay, maybe it wasn't all him, but I like the idea to bring in a defensive-minded coach. We're going to build the defensive line. We're going to build the secondary. It's a young team. They're 2 or 3 years away anyways from really competing, and they knew that, right? I think Miami's kind of the same way with Hafley. A lot of these jobs are really messy too. Like Miami's quarterback situation, their cap situation coincide with one another, but it's very messy. Cleveland, it's a messy situation. Arizona, I don't know who the quarterback's going to be next year, because you got Brissett and you have Kyler Murray, but I don't know if either of those guys are going to be on the roster. You know what I mean? It's just, is Aaron Rodgers going to come back? What is Pittsburgh going to do at quarterback? Vegas is the number 1 overall pick, but they don't really have any other talent. It's just, it's a very weird coaching cycle. I think the top jobs, I think Atlanta and New York were kind of the 2 obvious ones. I think Tennessee, obviously having Cam Ward, that's a very attractive offer and a job for a lot of guys. I think that's why Saleh jumped at the opportunity. And then I think Hafley taking the Miami job, going from Green Bay, I think he's going to love the weather down there, right? I think it's going to be night and day. At least, hey, you get to sit by the beach every day. And, I don't think there's going to be a lot of stress, at least initially, because they're kind of, if you're talking to like a house, they're going to have to rip out the foundation and kind of rebuild from the ground up, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done with a lot of these teams. And like Joey mentioned, I just think, I don't want to have to butt heads with ownership. I don't want to have a GM that's already there and he's calling the shots and whatever. You may only get one chance to be an NFL head coach. And if you're going to do that, you want it to be under your terms. You want it to be, in the best circumstances for you to succeed.
Well, did Miami, they win 7 of their last 10 or something like that? They really turned it on after a horrible beginning. I think when they found out they didn't have any chance at all, they started playing like, okay, well, we got nothing to lose. Let's do it. Hey, before we move on, real quick, Joey, Robert Saleh, the situation fascinates me. He is such a good defensive coordinator, and this will be his second effort now as a head coach. Sometimes, in my opinion, some defensive coordinators are offensive. They should stay as a coordinator because you're really good at it. Did he buy a lot of time here? As Brian said, there's some holes and some patches in Tennessee, but you've got a very young team. You've got a lot of cap room. You've got some draft picks possibly that could make a difference, and maybe some trades, so to speak. They've already made several of those during the offseason to get rid of some of their best guys. But does Robert have 3 years, or does he only have 1.5 maybe before he's expected to really turn the table here? You don't have the same amount of time in Buffalo. You don't have the same amount of time in Pittsburgh. I don't think you're going to have the same amount of time in Vegas, because you're going to need to win right away. What is Robert's situation like to you?
Well, my view of head coaching and probably the public's view are different. And I'll say this. For me, if I'm hiring a head coach, I want a leader of men. I don't care if he's an offensive coach, the defensive coach. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care what the situation is. I want a leader, okay? And a leader will, in turn, get the right coordinators. So Robert Saleh is I do think he's a leader. He's a defensive coordinator. And if the defense starts going back under the coordinator, then you take over, okay? But, again, you get a leader, and that leader will hire the right people for the job. So despite who the quarterback is, Cam Ward, hopefully Robert Saleh will get the right coordinator to help Cam Ward to continue to develop. Okay, the defense actually didn't play awful this year at Tennessee. They do have some pieces there. They need help, especially in the secondary, linebacker core, and more help on offense. But I want a leader. Okay, first and foremost, I want a leader, and I can't stress that enough. I want a leader of men, and we can work around that. Okay, some of these young coordinators, they've never led a room before. They've never, I can coach this quarterback, okay, but I have 26 other guys on offense that maybe I don't know how to talk to. I can coach them, but I don't know how to talk to them. I want a leader, and some guys are just coordinators, and that's the problem. Sometimes these young guys, they get fired, and you wonder why they fail is because, they're good at what they do, and that doesn't make them a good head coaching candidate. That makes them a good offense coordinator. That makes them a good defense coordinator, but that does not make them a good head coaching candidate just because they can coach one side of the ball.
Yeah, very interesting and well put. I know John Harbaugh was a special teams coach for years, and everyone says, how does he get the job? Because he knew how to take people to the next level. And he had to plug and play with a lot of offensive and defensive guys. He's always working with the linebackers, always working with the running backs and the tight ends. Those are a part, even some of the receivers, the second, the third wide receiver, they're going to be on teams. Some of your cornerbacks, not your starter, and his ability to communicate with all of them. And it sure panned out well for Baltimore all those years. And it didn't take him but, a week before he found gainful employment again. Brian, between Atlanta, let's say, and Stefanski, going to Cleveland and failing is one way. Well, why would the Falcons want a guy that couldn't make it there? Or is this a breath of fresh air for a guy like Kevin Stefanski? Said, you will not believe how hard it was there. Give me an opportunity, and I will show you everything I can do. Look at my resume. I promise you I can turn things around here in Atlanta. Which of the two of those scenarios was more accurate in your eyes?
Well, I think Stefanski's reputation around the league is very high, right? A lot of people think very highly of him. I think the only team that wasn't really all in on him, at least giving him a chance to come in and interview and trying to call him back for the head coaching job, was the Giants. I think that's because they kind of knew initially, like, hey, we're going to go all in on Harbaugh. He's our guy, kind of him or bust. And it ended up working out for them. But I think, at a certain point, the success and the failures of an organization, when you have all these different head coaches, when you have all these different quarterbacks and all these different schemes, you kind of have to look upstairs, right? Because the only constants are the ownership, right? The only constants are the guys that are making the decisions, the executives, the CEOs. So when I look at a team like Cleveland, it's been that way for 30 years now, right? We dog how many different quarterbacks they've had, how many different coaches, how many different running backs they tried to plug and play, how many misses they've had. It's just, I think at a certain point you have to kind of change your mindset and say, okay, maybe the success wasn't there, but maybe that team at this point, the way they think and the way they operate, just the way the league is structured, isn't capable of success at this point. I think Stefanski gets kind of the benefit of the doubt from a lot of teams, especially Atlanta, because they hired him when it comes to that, because they think he's a lot better than what Cleveland was. And I think, his record doesn't necessarily reflect whether or not, like Joey said, he's probably a great leader of men. I think a lot of former players, obviously excluding Baker Mayfield because they've had some issues, but a lot of former guys have come out and said, hey, I like the guy. He was great. He's a great coach. We love playing for him. You run through a wall for him, and they hosted a playoff game, if I'm not mistaken, with him. So, it's just sometimes the situation's not good, and you have to find new opportunities elsewhere. And I think Stefanski earned that. And
then you throw in Sean McDermott gets released just 2 or 3 days after they sign Stefanski. I mean, would that have changed it? Would Mike Tomlin have changed if that were an example for Atlanta or any of the other teams that are out there? There's so many different scenarios. So, Joey, I saw you nod your head before we go on to the games. Any final comments from you?
No, I mean, I know for a fact that the Giants called Tomlin before they finalized the deal with Harbaugh, and he said that he was taking 2026 off. So yeah. It all depends, and I'm sure he got that call from Atlanta. He probably got that call. Yeah. I don't know if he got it from Baltimore, but maybe. I'm sure he probably got it from every team. And
there might be a couple people in Baltimore that would renege on their season tickets if Mike Tomlin got it, but they get over it.
Hey, maybe not. You right. You never know. You never know. But it's just interesting how these things pan out and who's going to actually get jobs and why they get the jobs is more importantly the connections that they have.
Yeah, it's not final yet because we have 10 teams that are looking for new coaches. 4 of them have found their next generation. Bill Callahan, for example, is now the new offensive line coach with Atlanta that was just released relatively new. And Brian says, there's things hot off the wire. So lots of moves still yet to go. But we have a championship weekend to talk about, gentlemen. We're 30 minutes in the show. We haven't talked one lick about New England and Denver. So let's get to that right now. Denver at home, they are a 4.5-point underdog. Obviously, guys, the big thing here is Denver and the quarterback situation. You got Drake May, Trevion Henderson, Sheldon Diggs, a really good offense here with New England. They're second in the league in scoring, 28.8 points a game. They're fourth in the league defensively, and they have their starting quarterback. They've got a few guys that are healthy. Denver doesn't have that same situation. They've got Will Lutz, to kick a field goal if they need to late in the ball game, but will he be doing so with so many other question marks that Denver has? So, Joey, let's start off with you. Your thoughts first and foremost. The biggest elephant in the room, as Brian said earlier in the show, is Bo Nix will not be playing in this game. It broke a bone late in the fourth quarter in that playoff overtime game against Buffalo, and he's done. He won't be able to play at all.
You know what? That's probably, from a spread standpoint, it's probably a 7-point swing, to be quite honest, because
Sure.
Had he been healthy, they probably would have been a 3-point favorite at home. And now they're a 4.5-point underdog. So it'll be interesting. And as I said before, Jarrett Stidham, who will start for the Broncos, has history with the Patriots offense coordinator, both in New England and in Las Vegas. So I think the spread is probably correct. Denver will have to rely on the defense, and there'll be some things Stidham can do. He's more of a pocket passer. Obviously, he's got a nice arm. He knows that system, obviously, and Denver led the league in defense. They led the league in, when I say defense, they led the league in sacks. So they will have to apply pressure to Drake May in that offensive line. They will need to be able to stop the run, because the Patriots do a really nice job of being what I call balanced for the most part, running the ball and throwing when they have to, and Drake May can hurt you with his feet. So it'll be an interesting game. I do expect the Patriots to win, because when you go up against a starting quarterback who hasn't played in 2 years, easily 2 years the last time Stidham took a significant snap, I think you would have to be the other team would have to be favored. So I expect New England to have a chance to win that game and move on to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, New England's defense, they're fourth in the league in terms of the amount of points that they give up per ball game. Denver is third, so very similar. It'll almost be a rematch, Brian, of what New England had to go through with Houston just a couple of days ago, with Houston's really good and significant defense, but with the exception of a defensive turnover, 21 points is what the Patriots were able to put up on the board offensively. For the Broncos, they were 11th in passing with Bo Nix. They were 16th in rushing, and 14th in terms of overall scoring. So really above average, but not that much. It's not like they were top 10 in any of those offensive categories. Is that a benefit for Stidham, where if he just doesn't turn the ball over and allows the team to do some things, and if they get a couple of first downs and they don't have to really rely on him, is that what your game plan is if you're a part of the coaching staff?
Well, I think it's a benefit because you don't have to deviate much from your original plan, right? The idea is we're going to run the ball. Let's take care of the ball. Take our points when we can, and let's rely on this defense that's been, stout all season long, right? And that's what they would have done even if Bo Nix was playing in this football game, right? It's just, it changes a little bit because some of the things that Bo does, obviously Jarrett Stidham can't do, right? That's why Bo Nix is starting over him. And it's some of the just the routes and the timing and everything. It's very, very difficult within a handful of days to get the timing down. It's going to be tough. It's almost like we have to relearn this offense, right? We got to go back and say, okay, we can't run this play. We can't run this play. It's a play we've run all season. We can maybe do this, but we might have to deviate it a little bit. We might have to, check down more so. And I think there's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be a lot of Sean Payton saying, hey, if it's not there, check it down, right? Don't take a sack, but try to step up, run for a couple yards. Don't be a superhero. I know Joey, and we've talked about that with Josh Allen. don't turn the football over. Give us 175 yards, maybe a touchdown, and just give us a chance to win the football game. If Stidham could do something like that, I think the Broncos have a legit chance. But realistically, I think we've kind of underestimated this Patriots defense and how good they are as well, right? I mean, we talk about, everyone was dogging on CJ Stroud from a terrible football game that he played, which, he did. But I mean, the Patriots defense had him in fits, right? They're bringing guys up in the box. They're able to generate pressure with 4. They're daring him to throw it over the top. And they couldn't do anything offensively. And it looks to me like there's going to be a lot more of that on Sunday. I think New England's kind of going to just repeat what they've done and say, hey, we got a young, a youngish quarterback. He doesn't have a lot of starts. He doesn't have a lot of reps. So we're going to try to make his life miserable, throw a bunch of different blitzes at him, disguise all the coverages, and, 1 or 2 interceptions, get him off his spot, maybe rock his confidence a little bit, take the crowd out of it, especially if they have to make the Broncos play from behind. I think that's going to be really, really tough. And I just don't think Denver's going to be able to overcome that. But if they can run the ball, control the time of possession, and play defense, I think, like any other team, I mean, you got a chance to win the football game.
Joey, there's an expression that you never want to take your hand off the throat of your enemy, your opponent. You want to keep the pedal to the metal. All of what Brian says, that gets me excited because I'm thinking Mike Vrabel and the rest of the staff are thinking we're going to dominate and we're going to do so many things to confuse this young man who hasn't played a snap all year, and we're going to make it a living hell for him. And we're going to disguise coverages. We're going to bait him to think a guy's open, and next thing we're going to double cover or do some things. The recipe is great, but the actual being able to do it, can you imagine what the fans in Denver will do if they get up 21-17 or something like that in the fourth quarter and the defense is playing lights out? If Stidham does his job and doesn't give up the ball, what a battle of a chess battle and a matchup here of 2 completely different desires.
Yeah, I think what the Patriots will probably come out and do is they're probably going to apply pressure. They're going to see if Stidham has the patience to stand in the pocket and beat them over the top with the receivers that they have. And until he proves that he can do that, I think he's going to see a lot of different blitzes coming from a lot of different angles. And they aren't going to worry about changing a lot of things up other than changing up where the pressure is coming from. So I think that's the way to start the game. And if he proves that he can handle that, then he's going to see that the whole game. So Denver needs to be able to establish the run so they're not in long downs where they have to throw the ball. Because once the Patriots know you have to throw the ball, he's going to see a lot of different fronts. He's going to see a lot of different pressures, and they're going to make him beat them with his arm.
Well, offensively, Brian, the Denver Broncos have Pat Bryant, questionable. Tony Franklin, both wide receivers, they're questionable. Their center, Alex Forsythe, is questionable. Bo Nix is obviously out. J.K. Dobbins, he's been on IR. So there are some injury concerns that the Broncos have. Next man up. But, nothing speaks more than the probability of my quarterback and not knowing anything about what he's going to be able to do. That actually could be a benefit in disguise. Bill Russell, the old Hall of Fame basketball player, once said when the Lakers were playing the Philadelphia Eagles, 76ers, what am I thinking? And it was game 5 going back to Philadelphia. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was not going to play in this game. He stayed in Los Angeles with a migraine headache that he had. And Bill Russell goes on, I can't remember who the play-by-play guy was for that game, and says, Bill, what do you think? He goes, sometimes the guy that you know isn't as much of a worry as the guy you don't know. And so we don't know enough about Stidham, and that could be a real issue in this ball game. And really, he will be. But, in terms of, I don't know how I'm going to play this guy. If I blitz him and then he beats me over the top or with play action, oops, that didn't work, and now we're down by 7 points. So you got to be very careful how you play that if you're a Patriot. But offensively, Drake May has had a great year. Henderson has had a great year. They are in the top 6 in every category, passing their 4th, rushing their 6th, total offense their 2nd in terms of their scoring. New England has a lot of things offensively that are going to be creating problems for the Denver defense, not just for their own issues that they have to worry about with the Denver offense.
Well, I'll say this. We talked about Stidham, right? And the different looks they're going to give him. And, it's a new environment for him. This is Drake May's first playoff road start as well. So this is going to be one of the – if I'm Denver, especially if I win the toss, I'm going to kick. I'm going to try to get after this young man early on, maybe try to rattle him a little bit and get in his head. And let's play a game where maybe field position and turnovers win. I expect both teams to kind of condense things. They're going to try to control the clock. They're going to try to run the ball just because Denver's pass rush is so relentless as well. So the goal is going to be, let's keep Drake May upright. Because remember last week he got harassed by Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. They really got after him. The only real difference maker in this game was CJ Stroud's 4 interceptions, because Drake May had a couple turnovers of his own. He had a couple of key fumbles that really could have turned the game if the Texans could have capitalized and got points. I think if you're Denver, you're looking at that on the defensive side, said, hey, we have a front four, maybe not quite as good as Houston's, but we can rival these guys. We got a couple of really good, Benito's a phenomenal pass rusher. They got a couple of guys who can kind of reciprocate what Houston did well and maybe get after, that rookie left tackle they got, Will Campbell. Maybe, Drake May makes a mistake. Maybe he throws a pick six early on. And if we can find ourselves playing from ahead, which obviously I said earlier, the Patriots don't want that. Let's play from ahead. Let's run the ball. Maybe a couple of points on defense or special teams. It's no given that Denver's going to be able to run the ball well either, because last week Bo Nix was healthy and he was their leading rusher with 29 yards. So a tall task ahead, but I think both of these teams have similar mindsets. Maybe I don't think the Patriots are as limited offensively coming into this one as the Broncos are, but there's a lot of inexperience on Drake May's end, because this is the toughest environment he's probably, at this point in his career he's ever gone into.
Yeah, there's a lot there to it, Joey. Any comments regarding the Denver, everything going well for them? That may be an issue that New England certainly doesn't want to have happen, but in terms of us and being able to break down the possibilities, that's certainly one that has some genuine, teeth to it.
No, I think Brian made a lot of points there. I would just say that, again, I think the last person that really saw Denver's upcoming quarterback play was Josh McDaniels. So he knows his strengths and he knows his weaknesses. So that, from that standpoint, I think that's an advantage for the Patriots, because Josh McDaniels, he's had him and he knows what he can do.
Yeah, McDaniel's going to be spending some extra time in the defensive meetings, oddly enough, this week. So, yeah.
Yeah,
without question.
Well, what's the over and under on how many times Tony Romo is going to know what the play call is before Jim Nantz has a chance to set up the play? Will that be 4.5 or 5? Brian, what's your guess on that?
Well, with how limited they're going to be, Denver, it might be every single play, honestly, depending on the motions, whatever. It might be. He might have to bite his tongue a couple times, because it just might be like, hey, Jim, they're running the same play they ran at the 3:38 mark in the first quarter here.
Yeah, they're going to run it with the tight end to the left and watch the Z motion.
They set him in motion this time, Jim. You see that? They tried to catch him off guard, but it didn't work. Yeah. A lot of that. And then Denver will never allow Tony Romo to be in a Friday afternoon practice or a Saturday walkthrough. That'll never get to happen again. All right, that game at 3 o'clock on CBS, and Jim Nantz, of course, will be there, and Tony Romo, and probably the entire crew at Empower Field there in Denver. One has 4.5. I'm looking at odds by DraftKings has 5.5. The over/under is 42.5 for this ball game, and this is the first of the two. The second, gentleman, obviously this one is going to be just as big, but with the NFC side to it, it's going to be the LA Rams taking on the Seattle Seahawks for the third time this season. The winner has been on the road here. So the Rams have at least that going for them. The 12-5 Rams, the 14-3 Seattle Seahawks. Seattle had a very easy time against San Francisco. And I say easy in that everything seemed to work from the opening kickoff. So, Joey, the effort level probably, and we kind of teased about this just a little while ago, even after the first quarter, that game was pretty much done, at least in terms of the amount of scoring that San Francisco was going to get. But they looked good. They ran the ball well. Walker had 3 touchdowns. They passed well enough to where San Francisco couldn't get off the field there defensively. Everything they did defensively, obviously Seattle with the number 1 defense in the league, they're only giving up 17.2 per game. It just worked. Rams, on the other hand, they had a fight the whole way. They had to go to overtime. It wasn't for an interception midway through the overtime period, and then the Rams get a field goal late to win it. Much more difficult road for the Rams to get there. Does that play into this at all, or is this going to be one of those things where
Everybody gives everything they have. You have no idea what's going to happen, but it should be a great ball game regardless.
Well, these are common opponents. Again, this is the third time this season that these teams have played. And I'm reluctant to say that Seattle has a huge advantage only from the standpoint of they didn't sit players last week. They still had to play, and players still had wear and tear on their body. Despite winning big, those guys still had to go on the field. There was contact. A lot was going on. So I'm not going to say that the path, the score made it seem like the path was easier, but those guys still had to go play. So that being said, I was trying to see what the spread was. I'm sure it's probably 3.5.
1.5.
What is it?
It's 1.5.
Seattle. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Showing 1.5. The over under 47.5.
Yeah. So this is going to be, again, these teams know each other probably better than they know anybody else they played all season, because they're both favored to be in this game at this point in the season. I'm sure they did some early studying on each other outside of the 2 games they've already played against each other. So I expect this game to be a battle, tough, physical, a lot of everybody leaving everything on the field. So I'm not ready to say that Seattle had an easier path, because I didn't see them sitting guys versus San Francisco. They were on the field.
My coach in college, Leon Fuller, said tough, aggressive, hard-nosed football. He'd say it every week, and we all knew it. Everyone who was ever a Ram would have to listen to that. And that really is going to be a part of this. But let's look at just the quarterback play. Matthew Stafford with his 46 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, still great numbers. Really struggled. I mean, he was under 50% there in Chicago. Obviously the weather, obviously different pressure that the Bears put together. What's it going to take for him to relax versus when you have Sam Darnold, who played quite well? What's he got? 25 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, but he's still got that oblique issue, that stomach problem, and he won't be 100%. I think an extra week will make a big difference, but you know what? It could be one sack. It could be one pressure that could open things up again for him, and he may not be 100%. Give me your quarterback play perspective.
Well, if you remember, Stafford hurt his hand against Carolina a couple weeks ago too, so he wasn't playing at 100% either. I expect both guys to play better games. At least, I think the completion percentages will go up. I think it'll be a little bit cleaner because, having a couple of days off, getting to, treatment, whatever you need. These guys are going to be healthier than they were on Sunday and Saturday, respectfully. But I think the first meeting between these two, the Rams beat them by 2 points, right? It was a very, very close game. Seattle had a disastrous first quarter, maybe the worst first quarter they played all year, and it wasn't particularly close. And they still had a chance to try to win at the end. A missed field goal at the end of the game was really, what it came down to. Was kind of, I think it was just outside of Myers' range, but they fought, they scratched, they clawed. It was a dogfight, right? They came back, and I think that was the wake-up call that they had to say, hey, our defense is pretty special, right? What we're able to do defensively. Our offense spotted them 2 touchdowns early, and we were still able to almost win this football game. Couldn't move the ball, turnovers left and right, and then, you have the Thursday night thriller that they had was kind of the opposite of that, where they go for 2 at the end, and they end up winning 38-37. And both games, again, very close. Like Joey mentioned, these teams know each other very, very well. I think they're very, very well matched. I think you could argue these might be the 2 best teams still left in the playoffs. I think if you look at the Rams, they got a little more experience, obviously. So I think the edge goes to them there. But Seattle's playing at home. And it's really, really difficult to look at this game and kind of dissect any 1 or 2 things, right? Because both teams, there's just stuff they do really, really well, and they're coached well, and they're going to try to go out and they're going to try to exploit specific things that they've seen, again, because these guys have been around for a couple of years with the exception of Darnold. They know these teams inside and out. This will be the 5th time they've played in the last, 18 months. So there's not a lot that you're going to be able to sneak past them. I think it's going to come down to coaching. I think it's going to come down to turnovers. And I think you might have something like we had at the national championship game last night. Maybe a guy gets a little aggressive and trusts his quarterback or trusts his team. And maybe a 4th down where you normally punt, or you pass on points, or you be a little aggressive. I think it's going to be a lot of that. I think personally this will be a great game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think this is the game of the weekend. Obviously, it's unfortunate Bo Nix isn't playing. But, man, I love what the Rams have done all season. I love what Seattle's done all season. I think Kubiak's probably in line for a head coach, and I think he's going to showcase why that is. And It's hard to pick between these two teams, but I honestly think, like I said, I think these are the two best teams left in the playoffs, and I think whoever wins this game, in my opinion, it should be the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
A lot there, Joey. One thing I wanted to add: the Seahawks have the number one defense in the league right now, and the Rams have the number one scoring offense. So you've got two of the best going against each other head to head. Defensively, the Rams are 10th in the league in terms of giving up points at 20.4, and the Seahawks are third in the league at 28.4 points per game. So in a world where it doesn't really matter, does that stick out as a statistic that, well, the Seahawks offense is better? They're not as good as the Rams, but the Rams defense isn't as good as the Seahawks defense. So there's ways of looking at it. Both quarterbacks have thrown for over 4,000 yards. Both running backs for each team has rushed for over 1,000 yards. Each receiver, the top receiver of the Rams and the Seahawks, in Nakua and Smith and Jigma, have over 1,700 yards. A lot of similarities, but let's throw in special teams, Joey, as it sure made a difference in San Francisco's eyes to open the ball game with the kickoff return. What is special teams going to have in terms of the importance of this game in your eyes?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the Rams fired their special teams coach mid-season and brought in another guy. So Coach McVay feels that special teams has and must play an important part. And, he got rid of a coach early in the season or mid-season and brought in another special team coach just for this game right here, I would say, getting to the Super Bowl, being able for the special team not to be the reason that you don't move forward to the Super Bowl. The difference in this game will be being able to run the ball. I keep saying that, being able to run the ball, control the time of possession, and who plays the best defense. Okay, penalties will come into play, but the team that has the most explosive plays will have a chance to win this game. And hey, if Seattle return a kick for a touchdown, that's an explosive play. That's a special teams blunder by the Rams. So all those things will come into factor. There'll be 4 or 5 plays in this game that will determine the outcome. That's usually the case, and that'll definitely be the case in this game.
Yeah, getting a kickoff return like that, Brian. I know Frank Enns, when I was with the Falcons, Frank was a special teams coach for 3 years, and he had been a head coach, and he knew the statistics right off the top of his head. X amount of times when you get a punt blocked, your chance of winning increases by 64%, whatever it would be. He had little things like that. You get a doink off the goalpost. Not maybe as big of a factor there, but certainly a kickoff return, a block punt, all kinds of different things can take place in terms of your special team play. And Seattle certainly showed early and often that was a big key. You could tell the way the guys were running around. They wanted to dominate that portion of the ball game against San Francisco. The Rams are seeing this now, and they're probably going to turn it up in terms of the way that they practice and all that kind of stuff. But what are other intangibles that you want to at least expect one team or the other to show in terms of this is what it's going to take to get us to the Super Bowl?
Well, I think if you go by special teams, like what you guys mentioned, I think Shaheed is a phenomenal returner. I think in that respect, I think the Seahawks have a slight advantage. I think Myers is one of the best kickers in the league as far as his leg strength and his accuracy. Both were tremendous. I think he was top 3 or 4 in accuracy this season, and kicking outdoors. That's it's always impressive, especially if you're in Seattle. But one thing I watched a lot of over the last 2 weeks is the Rams have not gotten a lot of sacks. Right? They didn't have any sacks against Caleb Williams. I think they only had 2 against Bryce Young. I didn't hate the pass rush, though. I think Caleb kind of made him look bad, and he does what he does, right? He's able to extend plays and make guys miss, and that's part of the reason why he's the number 1 overall pick. But this week, we're not going up against Caleb Williams. They're going up against an injured Sam Darnold, right? And I think if you're the Rams pass rush, I don't think you can get discouraged by the lack of production, right? You want to get the guy on the ground, obviously, and get off the field and move him backwards. But I think the Rams pass rush is going to be a big factor in this one. I think Seattle can't take it too lightly. Right. I think they're going to have to maybe do a little extra because, again, we talked about how Sam's going to be a little healthier than he was last week, but he's still not 100%. Right. He was at the point where I don't think he threw a football probably until a couple hours before, kickoff on Sunday. So, it was Saturday. So I think, the Rams should prioritize stopping the run and maybe not getting Sam on the ground, but moving him around, right? Let's make him uncomfortable. Let's get him off his spot. Let's harass him, and let's not let him get in rhythm. And I think with the injury, that's going to be in the back of his head, and it might still affect him. I don't know how close to 100% he's going to be, but I think that's going to be a big key in this one as well. And I look for the Rams to maybe blitz early, right? Maybe stack the box. And I know they have JSN, who I'm very high on, and I've talked about all year, but maybe you got to change things up, and maybe you got a little creative if you want to come out of Lumen Field with a win on Sunday.
Real quick before we go to Joey. Go ahead, Joey. Please forgive me. Go ahead. Joey, go ahead. Okay, I'll finish up. Brian, before we go back to Joey, what I wanted to do is ask you, you kind of broke down the Rams defense and what you think they're going to need to do. Let's talk about the number one defense in the league right now. What is Seattle? If they can bring 4, or the Rams, if they only bring 4 and can drop 7 back, obviously a great advantage on passing downs to have another body in the way that Stafford has to worry about. What do you see the Seahawks defense? What's going to be something that they can do differently that Stafford has not seen in the last 18 months, when this will be the 5th time that he's gone against the very same team?
Other than disguising things differently, there's not a ton you can do, right? I think if you look at the Rams, Murphy and Williams are phenomenal up front. They're very, very good at disrupting, not even necessarily getting sacks, but they're very good, in the interior at getting Stafford off his spot. And he loves playing from the pocket. So I think their goal is going to try to get him out of the pocket as much as possible. Let's not let Devontae Adams get down the field. Let's not let Nakua get down the field. Let's try to limit their big plays. And, more so than anything else, they may not be better than Stafford, but I think we're better than their offensive line. And let's do everything we can to try to throw a wrench into what they're doing offensively. Because if you watch McVay and Stafford, they're very precise, right? They're on the same page. They ask a lot of their teams, but it works when it's clicking and everything comes together. And I think the main goal should be let's try to avoid that. Let's try to be disruptors. Let's try to make them adapt and play on the fly.
Joey, your thoughts here on defense. Give me some other things at Seattle or the Rams that you see from your perspective that'll be real keys to the game.
Well, I think when Sam Darnold brings the ball down and he has to run, he does his most damage running up the middle. Okay, he's not that guy that's going to be flushed left or right. He likes to step up in the pocket and then take off. I think that the key thing that the Rams need to do is make sure they contain the middle of the field, bring more pressure off of his right side, make him go to the left. Okay, because if he has to throw from his left, that's more torque and twerk on that abdomen, which is injured, oblique, which is injured, which he's trying to overcome. And the more he has to do that, move him off the spot, force him to one side, force a pass rush to one side, then you can create things that even if you don't get to him once or twice, the more he has to throw in that position, the more he's thinking about the oblique, the more he's having to turn his body, and third or fourth quarter, those things kind of manifest themselves, and you never know what may happen. But I think you can create a pass rush in a way that, again, it may not affect him right away, but as time goes on, especially if you force him off the bike and forcing him to one side, forcing him to one side, you can create a lot of pressure that way.
Yeah. This is for both of you. I'll go with you first, Joey. Kenneth Walker, 116 yards and 3 touchdowns. Normally he comes out whenever they get in the red zone, and Charbonneau gets in. With him being hurt, he played like his hair was on fire. The old expression, play like somebody's wanting to steal your birthday. He sure did. I mean, he played with a lot of vengeance, grit and determination, whatever you want to say. Hopefully Sam doesn't have to worry about all the passing yards and the oblique and everything that's going wrong, because if they can run the ball as well as they did against the 49ers, or even anything close to that, they won't be punting a whole lot, and they'll be scoring some points. They'll be inside the 40 for field goals and maybe inside the 20 for red zone chances quite a bit with the way he ran the other day. So give a credit to the offensive line. But give me your breakdown there of each of the offensive lines, starting with Seattle.
Well, with Seattle, I'm not afraid that Charbonnet is out from just a running standpoint. I think Walker will be fine in the goal line and in the red zone. What I am concerned about is his pass blocking. And I think Charbonnet was a much better pass blocker than Kenneth Walker, and that's where the pressure is going to come from. So I think if the Rams have a lot of pressure up the middle and Walker has to step up and pass pro, I think that's where the concerns will come in, because I think Charbonnet was actually pretty good with that, and I don't think Walker is quite as good at that. So that's one way to get the quarterback off the spot. For the Rams in the red zone, they have the best red zone target in the NFL and Devontae Adams, and then Puka does what he does, like nobody else. And their running back does a great job in short yardage in the red zone. So I think from a red zone perspective, I think the Rams will have an advantage there. But getting there is a whole nother issue.
Yeah, and Brian, if you don't mind me saying so, the tight ends for the Rams, not really big in Chicago, but all throughout the season, they've been really dependable go-to guys that you can get first downs with, or at least move the sticks, keep drives going along, where you don't have to have a dump off, whether it be to Williams or go to Puka or to Adams. I think that'll be a big key of the game too, for obvious reasons. If they have some catches and not get the yips, right? And Stafford can go down to them in ways that he wasn't able to in Chicago. I think that could be a real difference.
Yeah, I think that kind of speaks volumes to how McVay schemes things, right? Because throughout the year, if he feels like, hey, we have an advantage here this week, he's going to exploit that, right? Whether it's running the ball in the red area, whether it's going to the thing that points out to me the most was the Jacksonville game in I think it was in London, where I think Devontae Adams had 3 touchdown catches, and he didn't have a ton of targets all game, but they saw something on film where they said, hey, if we get down in here, they're not very good at covering the fade, or if you double move here, whatever it might be, right? It's right. You run a little Texas route, whatever, a little shimmy. They don't know what they're doing. And there wasn't a single instance the rest of the season where Jacksonville was embarrassed like that, right? Everyone else was kind of kept in check. In fact, we were bragging about how good Jacksonville's defense was for the majority of it. It's just if they see something on tape, which at this point they've kind of seen everything they can from Seattle, right? There's not many different looks or different formations you can throw at you now. But if there's something they can exploit, whether it's with Blake Corum or Kyron Williams or with Parkinson or Adams or Nakua, I mean, they were throwing it wasn't a catch, but it was kind of just quick hitters to Puka against the Carolina, and it worked twice, right? Get him the ball in space. Maybe it's, hey, we saw on tape that JC Horn's phenomenal, but he's a bad tackler. And I looked it up and it was true. And they said, hey, JC, we know you can cover him one-on-one, but make a tackle in space. You couldn't do it. They get 2 touchdowns out of it. And sometimes that's how it works. And they're very, very good at that. I think Kubiak is as well. I just think if you look at the Rams' weapons, they're a little more fine-tuned. I think they're a little more in sync and maybe a little healthier too with everything going on with Darnold. And I think, that's going to come in crucial, I think, in those key third downs and, like Joey said, in the red zone.
Well, we've got a couple of great games, guys. First one is going to be New England at Denver at 3:00 on CBS. The follow-up will be at 6:30 on Fox. That game in Seattle, where the LA Rams go to take on the Seahawks. So final thoughts here before we go, Joey.
This will be a great game. Both games will be great. I expect the Patriots to pull the win off at Empower Field, and I expect this is a tough one. I'm going to give the advantage to Seattle just because I think the 12th man will be there, but I would not be surprised if the Rams won this game. This is going to be the game of the week and maybe the game of the whole playoffs. This game could very well be better than the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Brian, your thoughts here?
I'm excited. I'm excited for both games, but this Rams Seahawks game is 2 teams playing really good football, 2 opposites of each other with best defense, best offense. It's just typically these games go to the defense, right? Most cases the high-powered defense is able to stop the high-powered offense, but this is the third meeting. I think anything can happen. Both games, leading up to this, they've played twice, obviously, because their division opponents were spectacular. So I don't expect anything less from this one on Sunday.
Yeah. Real quick, do you guys have any idea who would be the one guy that you would want to ring the bell there in Seattle for that game? Do you bring back Steve Largent? Do you bring back Sean Alexander? Who you got to
shocked if it's not Marshawn Lynch. I'd be shocked if it's not Marshawn Lynch.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what about Richard Sherman? Would you be okay with Richard Sherman? You might yell louder than any one of the fans, and you might be able to hear him above everybody else if he ends up doing that.
I don't know. If you want intimidation factor, maybe you bring Cam Chancellor in, but I don't know. I would be shocked if it's not Marshawn Lynch ringing the bell.
Several years ago, that reminds me, the Falcons were playing a NFC Championship game here in Atlanta. I believe it was in the old Georgia Dome. Forgive me if it was in the new stadium. It doesn't matter. And San Francisco walks out, Keena Turner and Randy Cross and some other I don't know who the other player was. Between all of them, they had like 7 Super Bowl rings, right? And the Falcons walked out, Jamal Anderson and Tommy Nobis. It doesn't matter, right? It was just such an offsetting. We don't have anybody, but Seattle definitely does have some superstars and some heroes, and obviously Super Bowl champions that they can walk with you. You know what I mean? And that place will just go crazy. So I appreciate your comments. Joey Clinkscales, Brian LeBel, I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We really appreciate it. This has been our NFL preview of the AFC and NFC championship games. And if you haven't watched a game before, and if you're from Mars and don't know anything about what American football is, this weekend, and notoriously over the past decades, the championship games have in many ways been so much better than even the Super Bowl. And we're trusting that will be a part of the factor of this weekend as well. So you have the New England Patriots going to Denver. You've got the Los Angeles Rams going to Seattle. Both games should be excellent. And we will talk about them on the wrap-up show after that occurs there on Sunday evening. But until then, we hope that each and every one of you has a fantastic rest of your weekend. Thank you for watching, everybody, for being a part of 100 Yards of Football. And again, have a great rest of your day.